Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Jenelle Riley from Variety. Before we're joined by our guests today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation today is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Jordan Klepper, Desi Lydic, Dulcé Sloan, Roy Wood Jr., Ronny Chieng, and Michael Kosta from The Daily Show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
It's so good to see you all. And this is an audience of SAG-AFTRA actors, so I actually usually like to open by asking, how did you get your SAG card? Which I know is maybe an unusual question for this panel, but I consider you all actors. So let's start with Desi.
Oh my God, you guys, this is gonna age me big time, but I moved to Los Angeles when I was 19. And the first thing I did was I registered with Central Casting to do extra work. And I managed to score an extra gig on Friends in the final season.
Whoa.
I know, this is clearly a very long time ago. And I got my SAG card from doing my third extra episode of Friends. If you look really closely, you can see my elbow in the cafe. So not a big deal, but.
That's so cool. Michael, what about for you?
Similar to Desi, mine was a corporate video for Homeland Security, TSA, filmed at Detroit Metro. Not a joke. I don't know why it was SAG. Why?
Wow. Who did you play in the video?
Well, this won't surprise you. I played, I think, a police officer arresting someone who was illegally bringing like turtle eggs into the country. Well, maybe I should ask you. Maybe I should ask you, Ronny, what the hell's going on? No, that was my first. I don't know why that was. Why was that SAG? It has to be because it's government. I don't know, but I got my card, so it's like Desi, Friends, TSA.
Very similar, same.
And credit where credit is due. The amount of turtle egg smuggling post that commercial way down.
Way down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well done.
Thank you,
Ronny. What about for you?
I moved to America in 2015 to take the job on The Daily Show. So my first experience was being in New York City, brand new to America, and everyone telling me to beware of con people grifting you. And then SAG coming in when I got my first paycheck. And I'm like, who is this? What is this? And I was like, no. And then they're like, we don't care what you say.
Right.
We're taking it. And then I found out, oh, they're the good guys. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because then I did a movie in Malaysia and SAG were the ones who made sure I had my own toilet. So I was like, oh, thank God. Right. Yeah. And then the insurance is awesome as well. And so I was like, oh, okay. So they were. I was coming from a very naive, non-American. I don't know what the hell's going on. Are these, and then it turned out to be the best thing ever. So thank you, SAG, thanks for the toilet in Malaysia. It was very beautiful.
I should also point out you're a SAG Award nominee for the cast of Crazy Rich Asians.
What?
Yes. Yes, I am a SAG Award. Any of you?
I think they kind of blew it on that one, personally.
I was going to say, that does not lift up SAG for my
But I will say, real quick,
a lot of great actors in that production. Ronny, definitely not one of them. Let's just be honest.
Hey, I'm just riding the coattails as usual. But, I know you want to move. I really want to hear everyone's SAG story as well. But I just want to quickly say that the SAG Awards that I went to for that year with Crazy Asians was literally the best award ceremony I went to, because everyone who came on to talk about who received an award, all the actors were talking about the guild, and they're talking about how like sometimes they had down years and sometimes they have up years, and if you're having a down year, don't worry, the up year is just around the corner. So it's very communal. Is what I wanted to say about the SAG Awards. Yeah.
Fantastic. You've just secured your second nomination, I think.
What a kiss up. My God.
Yes.
What, is that what we're supposed to do here? Not only like I'm a union man, I also love the awards. There was a buffet lunch I went to. SAG is better than everybody else. My God, Hoffa doesn't run this thing, Ronny. It's okay. You can dial it back a little bit.
I support everything Ronnie's doing. I support everything Ronnie's doing. I cannot wait to go to the SAG Awards. I cannot wait to be nominated for a SAG Award. I got my SAG card because SAG sent me a letter that said, if you don't join, you can't work anymore. Because I grew up in Atlanta and there's a lot of non-union productions, in Atlanta. So I had been SAG eligible since 2007. But if you were not a famous person and joined SAG in a right to work state like Georgia, you will never work. So it wasn't until I started doing stand-up full time and started auditioning for shows, TV shows and stuff in LA that SAG sent me a letter and was like, look here, lady, come up off them coins or you're never working this town again. So I got in SAG because I was working and SAG was like, stop playing with me. You will be in no work order. Quit playing with me. So, that's how I got into SAG, is because I was working.
That's a good problem to have. It was the same situation with me. I did BET's Comic View. And so the third time that I did Comic View was in LA. And the first 2 years I did Comic View, it was must join. And they sent the letter. And I'm like, shut up. Because you're not getting a lot of money when you're doing stand-up on television. It's $1,000 minus taxes and commissions and stuff like that. So as a road comic at the time, I needed this money. So this idea of paying dues, I was like, this makes sense, but let's wait till I have a bigger payday. And my check was straight up jack. Didn't get a check. I completed my performance on Comic View, and as I walk off stage, they go, sign here, your check now goes to SAG. Congratulations, you're in the union, you get no money. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills? But then, like Ronny, healthcare and good snacks and that nice, beautiful black and yellow and white SAG card. Oh,
and the sense of community. And
be quiet, Ronny. It's my turn. Can you mute Ronny?
Educational panels.
Insurance. I did not know. Listen, I've been trying to get my mother on SAG insurance, but apparently she's not considered my immediate family. So, I mean, she was my family. I think she's immediate. She's right there. She's how I got here. But I guess you have to have like a husband or a child. And I was like, stop knocking my loneliness. But yes, can't wait to have a family to put on the SAG insurance because apparently my mother doesn't count. But no, I'd wanted to join SAG forever because that meant that I was a working performer. Mm-hmm. And that was like the thing that was significant to me. It's like when I got my first SAG card, I was like, oh my God, it means I'm working. But nobody told you that, like, I didn't know that the more successful you get, the more money you got to give SAG. Nobody told me it was graduated. Nobody was like, oh, I didn't know it was a tithe. It's a tithe. Blessings on blessings on blessings. But yeah, it's a tithe.
How much you want to bet that Klepper was a suspect in Kosta's TSA video, and that's how he got his card?
I bet you they tried to book him, but he wasn't available.
I would say most of those TSA people are Michigan-bred actors.
Yes. Yeah.
They look like good classic TSA agents. I think I was knocking on the SAG door for years, not working nearly enough to get it, but nearly enough where they're like, I don't know, is that guy in the background of that commercial, is he part of our union? And I think SAG was sort of like, I'll make him wait. But then I broke through in, we all know the show, MTV's I Just Want My Pants Back.
Yeah.
Seminal television show from the early 2000s. And I mean, I know there are a lot of great stars and I Just Want My Pants Back. We can list them right now. We don't have the time, but I think Boss, who said 2 words at a urinal, was definitely the crowning achievement and one of the best roles I've definitely played. It's like that role and watching the SAG Awards on television, like equal levels of excitement in my life. But
this is the real show?
That was a real show. Yes, watch him. You should watch MTV. You're like, what shows are? I mean, Viacom makes the best product, but they also make a lot of product. And
Is it I Just Want My Pants Back? Is that what it's called?
I believe that was the full title. I Just Want My Pants Back.
You know, I'll send you the box set. What season do you want?
That was the great thing.
I think there was only one, right?
Yeah.
There happened to be only one, but I think that was a choice. They were going with that British method of like, let's just give them 8 episodes, make them good, make them clean, and make people want more. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you all for being here today. I'm such a fan of The Daily Show. And I actually want to start with an audience question because I would sort of love to know how everyone got their start. The question from the audience is, the hiring process at TDS seems cloaked in mystery. Can you tell us how you got your jobs, how one becomes a TDS correspondent? And let's start with Dulcé.
We auditioned. I don't understand why people think that we're like trying to go to Mordor, drop a ring and amount. Like I didn't have to get the blood of a virgin and the tongue of a. We auditioned. We all work in TV. I don't understand how no one doesn't understand. That's how you get a TV job. I'm so confused every time. People are like, oh my God, so what did you do? I auditioned. How do you get any job on TV?
I actually did have to get the blood of a virgin. I don't know about the rest of you, but that was the only way I was going to get this job.
Honestly, I haven't seen a virgin since the 90s. You know what I mean? That's not the kind of people that I hang around. So I'm glad I auditioned because Desi was on a mission. But yeah, we auditioned. I don't understand this. I've never understood this question, especially coming from actors.
I think the thing they'll say is that, or at least in my experience with The Daily Show, and I think, and I can't speak for everyone, I know Klepper is from the John era. He's the only one here that's from the John era and came over to Trevor. I auditioned during the John era and didn't get it, and auditioned again under Trevor. And both times there wasn't like the show isn't cyclical in the sense where SNL every summer, you know that a couple of cast members are going to leave and they're going to bring in some new blood. And that's the general cycle of that show. Where The Daily Show, there's never really a big announcement. You know when it's when they're looking for someone because there's chatter amongst the industry, but you also have to do your job up until that time so that your name is in other people's mouths, so that you at least know what's going on. Or you need a decent agent who knows what the hell is going on and has the pulse of everything. Because I've never in my tradition seen like the super wide, like we cast a wide net when we're looking for people, but it's just at random, unpredictable times in the TV cycle. So, you know, for me, it was when John left, that 6-week window before Trevor started, and they were, hey, do you know any other black people? Larry Wilmore starting the nightly show. Would be nice to have another black man. And so, you know, my name came up, and that was that. Neil Brennan threw my name at Trevor. Jen Flans got me the audition. And then, like 2 weeks later, what they don't tell you about The Daily Show is that you start immediately. Your ass get 8 days to figure out everything else that's going on in your life, and then it's time to be in New York.
Is it, an audition submission through agents, or is it often that they're looking specifically for you? Like Ronny, in your case, you know, you moved to America to do this show. Was someone aware of who you were and reached out to you to audition?
Yeah, I didn't audition for a Daily Show. They found me. So I don't know what anyone else is talking about. I did a.
Hello, actors. This is not how it usually works.
Because Ronny was already famous.
This is why it's good to be from a country that has 4.5 million people in it.
Yeah, it's easier.
Ronny's grounded though. He's a grounded guy. He wears suits on interviews and talks about how great Hawaii is. So at least he's really somebody who can speak for the people. But yeah,
hang on, let me change my watch real quick. Hang on. I did a show with Trevor. But I mean, I think the real core of what you're asking is, like, I think in show business, there's no one thing. You kind of stay ready. You make sure you know what you're doing and you're decent at your job, or hopefully good at your job. And then you never know kind of when the opportunity comes from random places. In my case, it was from doing a stand-up show with Trevor in Montreal. But, you know, to even get on that show, I had to do other shows to get on that show. So, and then when you do the show with Trevor, you have to be ready. And then And then when I did the show with Trevor, this was 2 years before the Daily Show. So then the timing worked out where 2 years later, Trevor got the Daily Show. Then he hired me on. So it's very hard to kind of plan out a path, which is, I'm not saying anything who's listening probably doesn't already know. It's just, it's very hard to, it's a bunch of little things that kind of push you into getting jobs and getting SAG membership, which is amazing. The insurance is truly remarkable.
But it's not some cloak of secrecy Illuminati shit by any stroke of the imagination. It's just keeping your ear to the street and knowing when the windows are open. It's no different than any of our other contemporary shows that are out there that also do unscripted political sketch. You know, everybody has a window open when it's open, and when it's open, you pounce on it, and hopefully you're prepared and ready for the audition.
Yeah, Roy's answer.
It's not a super sexy answer, but I was notified through my agent. So, and I think to mirror what Ronny said, someone told me when I was starting in show business that if you ever get anything, you get it way after you believe you're ready for it. And that is a good way to just say, stay in the game and be very, very patient.
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jordan.
I would echo that with Kosta too, like, you know, the functionality of like through an agent, what have you. But I would say I do understand a little bit of like the mystery in it. I mean, I'll admit I've been in this industry for a while, and it's still shocking when things open up and you never hear about it. And there's a lot of different paths for that. I would say the Daily Show was like that to me as well. And I auditioned a few times and never got it, never heard anything. But I think the thing that cracked through was timing. There was a spot open and they were looking for somebody who fit John Oliver's suits. But I had also just done a web series that John had seen and liked that. And so it was like in creating a bunch of stuff, and then they're quickly looking through people who could fit his suit and also the show. They're like, oh, I like that guy. Can he write? I mean, because it's also not an easy audition. Like I had to write multiple pieces within a week and then go on. And then if they like you, they bring you on, and then you do it, a written one and one they wrote for, and I had to do it with John. And I think like, so you gotta be ready right away. And I had been lucky in that I had been creating stuff to be in front of somebody, because I would say when I got that call 6 years earlier, I didn't have that stuff that was out there. I was just another name on a list. And so it's, you know, it's a mix. It goes through the same kind of path, but it definitely helped to have other things that in my case, they could look to and be like, I see what this person does. They put a nice little bow around what they do, and now we can bring them in and see if they're ready.
Yeah, I would say that, like, I think Kosta and I kind of one and the same in a way that for me, pre-Daily Show, I was off a canceled sitcom on CBS, and I was about 2 years adrift I was the comedian on every argument show on ESPN, which was fine. I was happy to do it. But in a weird way, being in that sports world helped you figure out a way to work that contrarian thought muscle, which is what the Daily Show thrives at. I'm not trying to put words in Kosta's mouth, but I know that's something he's always flourished at as well. Well,
and I just dug deep and I used the skills I learned in my Homeland Security commercial, and that's the driving force.
Desi, you're going to say something?
I'll just say that, you know, as actors, we audition for things a million times over, and then we never hear anything. You just either get the job or you don't get the job. And for me, I auditioned for the Daily Show a few times. The last time was almost a year before I actually started the job. So I wrote the piece, did the piece that they sent me. I sent in the tape and didn't hear anything. But I didn't know that Jen Flans, the executive producer, was hanging on to the tape for the right time. So then months later, I did eventually get a call back. So for fellow actors, don't give up. You never know. You know, someone might be hanging on to your tape out there. And so by the time Trevor was hired for the new version of the show, I came back and got to meet him and, you know, pounced on the opportunity. It was also 6 months pregnant. And they went, yeah, well, great, we'll use it, or we won't use it, whatever you want. So worked out.
I mean, the Daily Show walks this amazing line of being funny and entertaining, but it really does educate and shine a light on some serious issues. I'm sort of curious if you think of playing yourself as a character, or if you're really doing yourself. I mean, like, I guess Jordan, like most recently, I know Mike Lindell walked out on an interview with you. Do you see the person questioning him as like you, or do you see it as Jordan, a character?
I definitely think Mike Lindell walked on Jordan Klepper, the person. That's what it felt like. I would say, it's interesting, again, as sort of the old guard in here. I think there's been an evolution in sort of the role of correspondent, the cloak of character. You always use your real names in the John era, and it's a heightened version of the traditional correspondent role with like added naivete and pomposity. And then I think as Trevor came in, he sort of, that felt like a little bit of the old show and a little bit of old news. And so I think like I still feel playing a heightened character. Sort of my newer role on this show this last year of kind of going out into the world. And after having kind of gone away, I definitely feel like it's me, myself, as a comedian out there. There's not a whole lot of character. I'm mostly trying to get to the bottom of what these people think, why they're caught up in some of these logic arguments I don't understand. And at times wanting them to like me. And again, that's the desperate need I have inside as a hollow person and SAG guild member who just needs that love. And that no performance could create the actual need you feel on screen.
Anyone else? Do you think of yourselves as playing a character, or is it? Do you have that desperate need to be liked too? I think that's what would be really hard about this job.
We all have a desperate need to be liked. I mean, through hours and hours of true therapy, realized all of this is just because, as the youngest of 4 children, I'm just begging my parents to pay attention to me. So even saying yes to this panel, I'm hoping John and Jan watch this. Are we playing a character? This is a very good question. This is a question that I would love if you knew the answer to for me, because half the time my character is playing dumb guy who doesn't know anything, but at the other half of the time, I actually am a dumb guy who doesn't know anything. So heightened is a good word that I like to use, but in using that word of discovery, if for us to learn something in the piece, I think that very behooves the audience and makes for a good piece. And that also means that we as a character don't know the answer going into this thing, or at least that's how it's perceived to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely look at it like I'm playing a character of a correspondent, of a journalist. And I think it kind of depends on the piece, what percentage of ourselves is put into the piece. Sometimes we're sitting across from someone who is such a great heightened character themselves, and we have to kind of play straight person. And sometimes it's the opposite, and we have to play the most heightened version of our messiest, ugliest, most embarrassing, shameful selves. And that comes in handy too sometimes. But I think playing a character from my perspective helps give us the tools that we need to like get all the comedy out of it that we want.
And by the way, when people say like you're just playing yourself, that's actually one of the hardest things to do. I know a lot of actors who have had to play versions of themselves, and it's weird. It's strange.
I'd rather play me than say one of the other correspondents. I think I play me better than them. But look, it's tricky sometimes, especially we've added a lot of sketch to the show, and there's a lot of really, really funny sketches we've done. And that's not me playing me, or that's not, sometimes it can be confusing, but hey, it's comedy and we get to do what we want as long as you laugh.
We have another audience question. I'm curious about the writing pitching process. How many of the segments do you come up with yourselves versus being pitched to producer, or is it sort of a collaboration?
Ooh,
good question.
It's a whole collaboration. I mean, sometimes the writers go get the groceries, we cook it up. Sometimes it's vice versa. We can take an idea to the writers, and we have a great staff. And sometimes even beyond who creates it, we also have to decide where it's going to go, because it may work properly in the linear version of the show, or this is something that works better, for expansion. But, we have people that, like if you're working in this building under Trevor, you've been vetted a million times over that you have good ideas. So there's not some weird bottleneck or, oh, maybe I shouldn't. In the before times when we was all around each other in the employee kitchen, ideas could get tossed around from anyone in the building. And if it's a good idea, it's going to get walked up the totem pole to studio, and then they'll decide one way or the other. But, you know, all ideas are welcome, especially with our field department when it comes to what to shoot and how to shoot it. And also, even with heavier stuff that may have a little bit more gravity to it where we're not sure where the comedy is, if it's important to you, say that. And somebody else in the building can figure out a way for the correspondent to, you know, navigate around the landmines in a story.
Anybody can pitch at the show. And just to reiterate what Roy said, that blew me away when I got on the show. I figured the writers could pitch and maybe the correspondents could pitch. And then I would get emails from literally everybody in the building. And I mean, not even people that have comedy experience, maybe an editor, maybe, not you know, anybody. You would get a pitch. Yep. You go, who is this person? Why is this idea better than anything I've ever thought of? And it's really remarkable. And everybody does have good ideas. And, you know, the other challenging part, like Roy said, is making the meal taste delicious. That's the next hard part. Groceries you can easily buy. Cooking, easy. Tasting good, that's hard. Do I keep going with this eating metaphor? Because I feel like I've completely buried it. At what point do I scream,
how big of a meal? What's the
point?
Serving size of this meal? Is it a 3-minute meal or a 6-minute meal? Like, it's always, the arguments come much later after the meal's prepared.
Yeah.
Kind of a follow-up to that question. We have an audience question. Would you tell us, actually, the question is, do you have stories of segments you shot that failed or didn't make it to air?
The other correspondents have those stories, but I don't.
Well played.
Klepper, I know you have one or two. I have one we shot that didn't air, and then I have one that we were about to shoot and then Trump won.
Oh.
And the conversation shifted. Most predominantly black colleges have predominantly white baseball teams because of the economic disparities that happen at the community and high school level that keep black kids from accessing the more expensive AAU ball from where college players are recruited and thus make it to the pros.
Yeah.
Fun little cool story about white baseball, and then Trump got elected and that shit came right off the board immediately because we have more important things to talk about right now.
This is SAG. You're not supposed to say shit.
Why can't I? They say shit on FX. You can say it after 9 p.m. After 9 p.m., you can say shit.
I think I had two that didn't air. I think at least one. Yeah. One where it was Nazi, and we decided that we rightfully decided that airing it probably gives this particular Nazi more of a platform than we need to. And so we decided not to do it. And also I couldn't nail him in cross-examination. So it was on me.
I had a piece that was that we just came back from filming at the end of February last year about the wedding chapel industry in Las Vegas taking a huge hit because people aren't getting married as frequently anymore. And we came back and the pandemic happened. So we kind of realized, that story doesn't seem as important right now. It won't see the light of day.
I definitely, in going out and doing these field pieces and at rallies and whatnot, you often get the characters, but not always the biggest characters make the cut because they get too big and strange. On January 6th, we interviewed a lot of characters, some soon to be felons, some felons. But there was a moment where we were interviewing a pitchfork guy who was wielding a pitchfork, screaming about insurrection. And he got interrupted by another guy who was even wilder and more intense, to the point that the pitchfork guy didn't want to be associated with other guy. He out-intensified pitchfork guy, and he was like, let's move away. And so we got back, we're like, we can't use the guy who out-intensified pitchfork guy. It was like, no, he just was pure vitriol, pure anger. So occasionally that happens where everybody's like, oh, you're just putting on those people who are wild in a way that nobody else is. You're like, you'd be surprised the people who aren't on, because we just don't feel right putting them on, or we feel frightened that they'll come after us in the long run.
Yeah, I think that there's a balance that Trevor has found in the show where tonally, there's kind of two types of stories. We can follow what everyone is talking about, or we can tell you what you should be talking about. And we cannot lose, or at least we haven't lost touch with what people are talking about. I was out in the Democratic primaries, 2016, Hillary, John, the one from Boston. I don't remember his name. You didn't know his name, Klepper, but there was.
What are you talking about?
John
candidate?
I don't remember
John
his
Kerry?
name. He didn't win. Hillary got the nomination, but it was at that.
Bernie?
It was him and somebody else. It was Hillary, Bernie, and the third guy. You Google him.
It's not the important part of the story. Yeah.
It's not. My point is, we went out and covered that
news
full
satire on the planet. You're not going to get people who are just enmeshed in a news world. They're the kinds of people who know almost everybody who ran for the presidency in the last 8 years. I mean,
someone's yelling the answer at the screen right now. My point is, that weekend in Iowa, where we went and did a full story, there was a terrorist attack in France. So on Monday morning, we can't talk about this. It just tonally doesn't match the mood of the country and the direction that the show needs to go into. So I think above all, we're always in service of what the pulse is, nationally with regards to this.
Ronny, you mentioned your cross-examination, which is a great phrase for it. I'd never thought of it that way before. But in addition to being comedians, who I think are naturally very good cross-examiners of culture, that is a very specific skill that you all have to navigate in these interviews. Is there any kind of training that they give you, or help, or do you do practice runs? Because you're all really good at it.
Yeah, you kind of get thrown into it for sure. There's no real job that's quite like this, I think, because it needs so many skill sets. If I do say so myself, you need to be able to improv on your feet. You need to also be able to prepare for the interview. You need to be thinking of the edit when you're doing it. And so what we would do is we would watch, Roy and me, because we're diligent, we would watch a lot of raw footage of previous correspondents, and not just their field pieces, but the actual raw footage of them on the field piece to see how to do it. You ask a bunch of questions, but ultimately you learn through experience. And also we are supported by like a really great team of people who are trying to also make it give you the best chance for succeeding, whether in the prep before you even get to the shoot, during the shoot, in the edit room, so there's a whole team supporting you with, so it's you're not just on your own out there.
What about, you say you're not just on your own out there, and then I think of Jordan at these Trump rallies. Do you have any kind
Jordan
of
is on his own out there.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have more support.
They've stopped paying Jordan like a year ago. He just goes to these things and shoots
This is just, I'm confused by the whole Viacom Comedy Central merger. What's digital, what's not, what responsibilities I still have. I don't know. So I just show up at events and push record. We have a small, Ronnie's not wrong in that, like, it is a team effort with everything. Like, we have a small footprint with these rallies we do. I will say I'm lucky. I travel with a producer who I've worked with for years. Has been at The Daily Show for a long time. And we kind of go out to these events. But to go to an event or a rally, what we end up doing is, like, we'll kind of go with a general idea of what we want to cover. And then we'll talk with a few writers on the show. Like, we usually do what we call, like, joke meetings, which are essentially ways for us just to start batting ideas around. And I will tell you, 99% never make air or even get tried in the field. It's almost as if you're trying out conversations and angles to hit. And so you feel prepped because you've had many of the conversations that could be out there, and I go out with this producer and a cinematographer we use a lot. And so we're like a team that really works pretty well together. And then when you land in the field, you're ready to kind of adapt. And so it becomes sort of an improv exercise in trying to get a sense of what people are talking about. I think a luxury in this era and is that, like, you you might go out and say, I think we're going to give you this piece that's going to be about whatever the topic is, but we haven't talked to these people yet. So if we arrive and suddenly that's not what people are talking about, or the assumptions are like, we assumed one, that it was all going to be COVID talk, and we get there and everybody was months beyond that, so that we have to reassess. Like you've done enough prep that you can pivot at any moment. And then I'm lucky enough to get to partner with my producer, and we get to sort of kind of craft what we think our angles are going to be out there, and then you come back and you make that thing happen in a quick amount of time. And I would say that's the big fun thing about working on a show like this, is you have to create the things you do now are going to be on tomorrow. And I think it's really rewarding, because again, coming from an improver's standpoint, you can get frustrated in this industry working on projects that have like a 6-month lag. And I think The Daily Show sometimes has like a 24-hour lag, where it's like, you're doing this thing tomorrow, you're going to fight with the pillow guy. Hopefully you'll have something on the day after tomorrow. You're like, all right, let's make it happen.
But have you ever actually been worried for your security at one of these?
Yes. I travel with security, and I mean, to be quite honest, I went to the Million MAGA March, their word after the election, and everybody was pissed. There's 70,000 people there. I travel with 3 security guards there, and that one we got cornered, and they literally had to take me and build a wall with 2 of them and take me to an area that we decided we would meet up to get away from other people. We had to go back on the 6th with 4 guards. And then after explosions happened at the Capitol, they had to pull me away, and we were literally doing interviews close to where the exit to the train station was. So because we knew we had to have an out plan and couldn't get stuck at a bottleneck. So I was a fucking improv teacher 7 years ago, but I'm working with a security team to come up with comedy. So
we have to build a wall to keep you safe. Yes, and I am shitting my pants right now.
Zip, zap, get the fuck out of here. There's flashbangs.
Also, I love that Ronny's laughing while you're telling this, because he was in Hawaii, apparently.
Yeah, he was in Hawaii, yeah.
Fun in the sun.
Any man on the street, like grinding it out, brutal stories that we have, Jordan talks, and you're just like, okay. One time our security guard showed up in DC when I was doing Man on the Street, and he had a totally bloody lip. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, oh, that guy just punched me in the face. And I'm like, what? I'm totally safe. The security guard, by the way, is so calm. He like de-escalated the situation wonderfully, even though he got hit in the face. But then Jordan says flashbang and AK-47, and our stories suck.
Dulcé, what about for you? What would you say was the most challenging story or moment of the last season? Or maybe just working under these, new conditions is a challenge?
I think for me is that there wasn't really the separation. One, I kind of loved it. Cause like, if you pay all this New York City rent and then you're not in your house, you like, hey man, I'm giving somebody thousands of dollars to only sleep here. So as soon as they're like, you're home, I was like, all right, let's make this rent worth it, baby. But then they started sending stuff to my house. And at one point I had 2 green screens because one of them wasn't wide enough. So I was trying to figure that out. And then, learning all the technicalities and the technological rhythms.
If ever I have a technical issue, I text her and she's like, okay, here's what you do. Here's how to transfer your files.
Right. And then any questions she has that I don't know, I ask Roy first. And then I text Desi back.
Yeah.
Or I just go, Desi, you might want to text Uncle Roy, because Roy, I don't know, is Studio Light and Magic over at the house, if you were unfamiliar with what Roy Jr. had going on.
He's got the setup.
It's got a nice
I'll say one thing that's been very dope about this last year with the show is that we've been able to follow stories that are important to us and be able to live more in the actual truth instead of stressing, where's the joke? Sometimes the jokes are in there, but you find them. Like I was able to cover talking about the citizens arrest law in Georgia that led to the death of Ahmaud Arbery. But then by the same token, Dulcé is able to come back and go, hey, let's talk about black women's hair. Since we're going to have conversations, let me, a black woman, sit down and start talking about that.
Right. And sometimes other places talk about these things, and it's interesting to see when Black women's issues that are covered by Black women are covered by white men. They're given pats on the back because it makes sense for it to be coming from me. I'm the one with the black hair. But if you have those moments, then it's very interesting that someone else gets, it's nice to see that other places are talking about them, but we always have to sometimes acknowledge what the source is.
Well, the show has been so fantastic for a long time, but in particular this last season, the quality has been so high, even with the challenges. I want to thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your experiences, process, and craft with your fellow SAG-AFTRA members. And again, I look forward to you all coming back in September.
Janelle, I'm going to be at the Grove Comedy Club in Lowell, Arkansas.
I thought you were going to say here. I was like, I'll go.
Thank you for having us.
Here you are. I believed you.
Can we real briefly just say thank you to SAG-AFTRA, and not only SAG-AFTRA, but the people who have supported the show in the last year, not only in watching it and our ratings increasing during the time in which we were inside, but also, we raised a lot of money, and that
How
was
much, Roy?
from
How much?
people, millions. Costa?
Over $3
million.
$3 million. Our fans have raised $3 million. Thank you so much.
This is charity, man. And that comes from people who support the show and who are fans of the show. And that's just, I don't want us to end this conversation without me saying thank you to those people,
Thank you, and thank you.
I'm a sincere person. These other 5, I don't know if you can trust them.